This podcast is brought to you by Primary Intelligence, the leader in win-loss analysis, focused on helping businesses uncover the unique story on how each sales rep can win more deals.
Hey everyone, and thanks for joining me on another rousing edition of Sales Intelligence Weekly, brought to you by Primary Intelligence. I'm Ryan Queller. Okay, buzzwords. They're everywhere. Shoot, even buzzword is a buzzword. And in my humble opinion, there's two words that sit atop the buzzword pantheon, but are commonly misunderstood. And that is strategic and tactical. Now, product marketers are often tasked with positioning, product launches, win-loss analysis, and oftentimes even sales enablement. And with so many things on your to-do list, it's super easy to overly focus on the day-to-day. As a product marketer, how do you ensure that your role doesn't become 100% tactical? How can you as a product marketer become more strategically minded, right? And how does strategic product marketing impact your go-to-market strategy and organization? The perfect man to talk about these issues with me today is Mr. Ike Waba, marketing leader with experience building out product marketing functions at multiple organizations. If it's been out there for product marketing, likely Ike has seen it. So Ike, welcome to the show today, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
All right. Before we get into the conversation, tell me about you. Who is this Ike person? Tell me about you. Tell me about your experience.
Yeah, definitely. So just a very high level, pretty diverse background, right? And so I know I've seen a lot of articles of how do you become a product marketer. And so for me, it was actually a journey. And so in my past, I've done a lot of different things, right? So project management, but more so on the go-to-market side, I've done sales at Cisco. I've done product and product marketing at AT&T. So large organizations and smaller companies as well. And so I moved over to Armor Cloud Security, led the marketing team, started off as a product marketer and then took on more responsibility. And then just more recently, I transitioned out of my previous organization, leading the B2B market segment on the marketing side. The company's Higher Logic. So pretty diverse background. Ultimately, that insight into what customers want, what they need, being able to work within the different functions have given me a purview of what is necessary to be successful as a product marketer. Okay,
so you've seen it. You've been through a lot. You've seen lots of experiences that way. In your opinion, what do you feel the role of the product marketer ought to be?
Yeah. So just going back to your intro, right? So when I look at product marketing is a very strategic role. And so as a lot of folks, when you talk to individuals, there is confusion, or it can be confusion of where a product manager lies and then where a product marketing begins. And so as a product marketer is really that strategic voice that helps shape the direction of an organization. Again, depending on the size of the organization, as a smaller organization, so a lot of times the product marketer is really taking a look at the whole org. And so how is a company positioned in the marketplace? What is their brand? What does their brand look like? Of course, working with corporate marketing in some ways, being able to drive awareness of the product and being able to really have that insights into who the customers are, what their needs is, and being able to translate that back into whether it's the product teams, the sales teams, the CS teams, but across the organization. So really as a PMM is a strategic role that interfaces across the board with all the different departments in an organization and provides that deep insight into the customer and allows an organization to be successful in all that they do. So that's my high level definition, or that's how I define it.
I love that. So that's perfect. And you gave me a perfect opportunity to come back to strategic versus tactical.
Yeah.
So let's start to define that just at a top level. Let's forget product marketers, marketing. Just what is the difference between strategic and tactical first? Then we'll get into product marketers.
Yeah, definitely. So just for me, when I define that, so when you look at strategic is having a higher level view, an eagle's eye view of an organization or whatever you're doing. Not doesn't have to be about your organization, and being able to really have a scope of and a vision of what needs to happen and where things need to go within an organization or within whatever you're doing, right? And so with that, being strategic means really having a top level view, having a clear direction, having a clear vision of where things need to go. And then the tactical is how do you deliver on that vision? All right. Some people will say there's strategic, there's tactical, and then there's the operational side. And so, but ultimately, when you look at the tactical, it's the day-to-day execution of what you've been able to establish on a strategy level. Then one last thing, when you look at strategy as well, strategy also takes in, it's not a it's not necessarily a day-to-day view, right? It's a holistic picture of, okay, within this year, within this 5-year plan, within this, quarter plan, here's what we need to do to get to our goals. Whereas tactical helps you deliver to that strategy that you establish and set.
Okay, I think we're perfectly aligned here. I think that's fantastic. So I heard somebody the other day talk about strategy being something like mapping your destination on the roadmap, and the tactical is the driving of the car to the destination, right? So that's what I heard you say. I think we're aligned. That's fantastic. Now, I want to back up before we get into the difference between tactical and strategic product marketing, which we're going to get into in a second. I want to go a little bit further here. Sometimes you hear in organizations, people weaponize the word strategic or tactical to whatever end they're getting after, right? You bring an idea to the table. Oh, that's not strategic. Or hey, I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing. Oh, that's too tactical. I mean, it feels like there's oftentimes this like push and pull, this almost at odds with each other, the strategic and tactical. But what you've described it as, they're not at odds. They should be totally aligned.
Exactly. You need both, right? And ultimately, it's the strategy drives the tactic. If you have strategy but not execution, it's pointless, right? But if you have tactics and without strategy, you're just going in a circle. And so ultimately, you need both to make sure that you're moving forward and that you're delivering on what outcomes that you're looking to drive. But so to your point, yes, they have to be hand in hand working together, one leading the other, but it needs to be there.
So maybe it's contextual, maybe depending on the conversation, the output or the outcome or the end in mind for whatever conversation that person's entering into. That's where maybe potentially that friction might exist, as people's expectations between the conversation being strategic and tactical. I mean, do you agree, disagree?
I agree. It depends on the individuals too, but to your point, it's being able to really level set on, hey, what's the point? Like, what is the outcome and goals of what we're trying to drive here, right? So in my past, as an example, we have with my teams, right, we've came together and say, okay, how are we going to deliver on these goals, right? Now let's brainstorm on the tactics, right? Let's brainstorm on the things that we need to do. And so that makes sense. But at a certain point, sometimes when it's in the early stages, right, when you look at FY23 or the fiscal year planning, right, it's really focused on let's establish the strategy first before going into the weeds. But I do think at the same time is that the tactics is still important. So for me, what I typically do is that I what is it called? I put it in a parking lot, right? So capture the ideas because it's still important, but ultimately making sure that those ideas drive towards a direction and towards that goal that we're going towards.
All right. Now that we've got an idea between the difference of tactical versus strategic or strategic versus tactical, and I don't know what comes first, chicken or the egg, or peanut butter, jelly peanut butter, I don't know. But let's talk about product marketing. How would you explain the difference between tactical and strategic product marketing?
Yeah. So one of the things that I wrote a post recently. And so what you see is product marketing is a hard role in some ways. I love it because it's so diverse. You're doing a lot of different things every single day. And so when you look at a product marketer, right, there's a lot of tactics and a lot of things that you have to deliver. So whether it's a new sales deck, whether it's a data sheet, whether it's a battle card, whether it's a competitive intelligence, there's a bunch of stuff you can be doing, right? And so a lot of those things are, in my mind, tactics, right? There's day-to-day activities that you're running towards. And when you look at product marketers, you're also getting requests left and right from different groups within the organization. And so, just being mindful that is the role of a product marketer. However, when you look at a product marketer, it's important to ensure that you have your basics and the foundation set first, right? Going back to the strategy. And so whether it's the initial, product that's being released, whether it's, being able to help support in terms of the fiscal year. So how do you help with the alignment of the goals, right? So product marketing has that ability to shape that. And so whether it's ARR, whether it's retention, whether it's, upsell growth, whatever that looks like, how do you help us establish those strategic goals? Things like market strategy informing based on what's happening within the trends in the market. And so there's a higher view of what product marketers should help deliver first before then executing on the tactics. And by understanding that strategy, it can also help them prioritize the requests and also prioritize their work, not just requests, but the things that they need to execute on, because ultimately they have a goal in mind in the things that they do or that they need to deliver on. So, right. Yeah, did that answer your question? Just
well, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I being me, I have several follow questions.
Yeah, I love it.
So here's the trick though. So, says easy, does hard.
Yep.
You're saying, understand the strategy so that you can prioritize your tactical activities or the behaviors that you need to do to drive the strategy. So that's cool until somebody comes to you or 10 people come to you as product marketer, which product marketer seems to be kind of the center of the universe when it comes to, you're the nexus between sales and marketing and product and, all of this go-to-market stuff that's happening at the like all roads lead to Rome, and that's product marketing.
That's right.
So when 10 people come down on top of you, and I'm sure you've never had this experience.
Oh yeah, never.
Yeah,
not at all.
So when 10 people come down and, okay, look, this is a top priority. This is the priority. How do you handle this? How do you handle this leaning on that strategic versus tactical kind of mentality?
Yeah. No, it's true. So I think to your point, it happens often as a product marketing leader, right? My job is to help my team filter out some of those requests, right? Because ultimately everything is a fire, everything is important, right? So it's the tyranny of the urgent, right? Everything is urgent, but not everything is important, right? And so
that is it. Say it one more time.
So it's and this isn't original, but it's the tyranny of the urgent, right? So everything is urgent, but not everything is important, right? And so with that, for me, being a product marketing leader, based on that strategy that is established, being able to align with those teams and really prioritize, right? So working with with my peers, but then also working, my team working with their peers and also upwards, right? Being able to go back to say, hey, here's why we're going to prioritize this. Here's what we have, in our backlog that we're going to work on because it's going to drive X. And so by aligning with those goals, right? So for example, if their goals is to close at, X amount, millions by this quarter, right? Being able to say, hey, we believe that, chasing this competitive intelligence for this unknown competitor that you just faced is not as important on compared to building a new sales deck or helping support you and, handling certain objections that we've been seeing, right? Because this is something that's more top priority. Or, working with product as an example to say, hey, let's prioritize this launch versus these other feature sets or whatever that may be, right? So ultimately it's understanding what is important, the urgent stuff. Of course, you can't please everyone. So not everyone will be happy, but if the team knows that you're strategically aligned with them, then it makes it a lot easier. And for me, having and building that close trust relationship with my sales partners, my product teams, my customer success teams, makes it easy and makes it a conversation. It's not always on a day-to-day basis. It's not always easy, but ensuring that we are rolling towards the same goal makes it a lot easier in having those conversations.
Yeah, sometimes I've heard people say that the intersection of importance and urgency is violent, right? Yep. So it can be a violent intersection of those two things. And what you just said, I think is one of the most important takeaways. And that is the alignment amongst your teammates, whatever it is that you decide to do. Yep. So long as you execute on the thing, I'm pretty confident that you're going to achieve whatever goal. It's right. That alignment. I mean, at least from my opinion, it's that alignment that is the difference maker in the execution.
I agree. Yeah.
All right.
So it's having that alignment, building that trust, knowing that you're rolling towards the same goals. Because again, sometimes there's different priorities that take precedence, but having that communication and that trust helps move things along. So I 100% agree with you there.
So are PMMs, are they mostly tactical or strategic? That might be a just terrible question. That might be a terrible question.
There's no terrible question. So for me, in my view, it should be more strategic, right? A lot of times you start moving towards tactical, especially when there's a lot of delivery and due dates and launches and things going on. It should be more 60-75% strategic than tactical, right? There's something I'm going to try to work on a little bit. I'm referencing as scaled product marketing. And so how do you build the foundational pieces so that you don't have to build the individual pieces, right? So as an example, how do you have a messaging documentation that is clear so that you're not having to be so bogged down and writing new copy for web copy, or support and demand gen on ad copy and things like that, right? So if you build those from foundational pieces enough and strong enough, you can be able to equip all the other teammate members to be able to take on more responsibility, and so you can be able to scale your activity. So a long winded way of answering your question: 60-65% strategic, the rest tactical. It depends on how you scale your efforts, but that will be very critical and important as well.
Okay, so I love the split. That's helpful for our listeners. That's a very helpful kind of very tangible idea that they can lock into. Okay, maybe a 65-35 split between strategic versus tactical. And if I'm peeling the onion a little bit, it sounds like that tactical has more to do with timing. As you get closer to the execution of the activity, that's when you need to become more tactical. Did I understand that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So onset strategic, build a foundation, build everything, but then as you're delivering, so again, there's a lot of different things you can be delivering on, right? So whether it's an event, whether it's a new web page, whether it's a product launch that's coming up, then there's a lot of the tactics that you have to start working towards, and building new copy, content, etc. So exactly right, Ryan.
All right, so let's go a little bit further here. And I heard from a friend, and whenever anybody says, I heard from a friend,
yeah, like, okay.
you're like, are you the friend? Is that you? No, but how do you move? Okay, so how can a PMM move beyond the tactical if you're already in the thick of thin things, right? If you're already in the tactical, how do you move beyond the tactical, especially if they're in a smaller organization where you're like the junk drawer, right? You're wearing multiple hats. You got everything going on. How do you move beyond the tactical in these circumstances?
It's all about goal alignment, right? So, almost like building a business case. Hey, I'm working on X, Y, and Z. I have 10 things that I'm working on, right? I need to decrease my workload by 5, reduce it by 5, so that I can be able to do this one thing that will lead to, X, right? The bigger number, bigger goals. Hey, we need to really understand what's going on within our competitive environment to understand why we're losing to these customers, so that we can be able to be better equipped, because we're finding that that's where we're losing. So it's all about aligning to the goals and being able to have that conversation, right? Because again, a lot of times people are spinning their wheels working on things that, yes, it's great. Yes, we have an MBO, or we have a, OKR that says, let's deliver on X, Y, and Z, but those things will not move the needle. So the closer you're aligned to the organization goal, the easier you're going to be able to have that conversation. And so my advice for PMMs that are really focused, or hands down, really all into the tactical, is to be able to take a step back, take a look at your workload, take a look at what you're working on, and be able to really identify what really matters, what is important and what is just urgent, and then identify the things that will help you move the needle to that customer, to your organization's goal, and being able to have that conversation with your leaders.
So wonderful advice, listeners. Heed this, right? Align to the goal, take a look at what's most important, prioritize, and then work on first things first. I love this. Okay. So I'm a PMM. I'm tactical. I'm trying to move myself from tactical to strategic. I align myself to these overarching goals, these OKRs, whatever. But I've already trained my people internally. I've already trained my people internally to rely on me as a tactical resource.
Yep.
All right. As you are able to put more focus on strategy, how do you drive strategic change throughout the organization? And by organization, I mean other people. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So how do you do this?
Yeah. Again, going back to the goals, right? So you've trained them to look at you as a tactical deliverer of things, right? Hey, give me this battle card. Let me know. Here's this. Tell me about this competitor. Do X, right? I need this copy. I need this new, splashy white paper, all that stuff, right? So ultimately, it's the goal. Being able to say, hey, I know this is how we've worked in the past, but my focus is on this so that it can help me drive this, right? So, and it's also on understanding your stakeholders. So as a seller, as an example, if I come to my sales leader or my sales partner and say, hey, I know that you're looking to deliver on, X million in this quarter, you guys are short. I'm going to do this to help you drive Y, right? Whether it's a new battle card and that's my goal is to help you be successful. Their answer will be yes.
They're not going to say no to that.
Yeah,
never.
Forget the battle card I ask you. So forget the competitive intelligence. Go do that. And so it's all about understanding your stakeholders, understanding their goals, and then aligning to that, because ultimately that's what that's what people want to see. So. Yeah.
So that was, I think you landed that hard. That was so good. So it's understand the goals and then understand the urgent goals that your stakeholders are really leaning into and maybe where their gaps are.
Yep.
And being part of the solution.
That's right.
Gap, being the bridge to the gap. Am I following?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I love that. That is phenomenal advice. Okay. So you've done this. You've now aligned to the organizational goals. You've seen what's urgent. You see where the gaps are for the stakeholder. You go to the stakeholder. I'm going to do these things. It's going to help you bridge this gap by X, X to Y by when.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you then socialize strategic, this strategy in this play, with other people that downstream? We've talked about alignment upstream.
Yep.
How do we do this downstream?
Yeah, that's one that I've been looking to figure out more and more, right? But
if we figure that out, let me know.
Yeah,
right?
No. But it's a lot of communication, right? So I think as a product marketer, communication is very critical and pivotal, right? And so as an example, I mentioned a messaging documentation that I oftentimes create within any organization I work on. And so with that, being able to establish a clear documentation that says, here's who we are, here's our unique value proposition, here's the pain point, here's the customer set, here's the value, here's the benefits, here's the outcome, here's the, it paints a picture, a robust picture of who as an organization or who as a product, again, depending on the size of the organization, me as a product marketer, what I own, delivers. And then I take that and I communicate it extensively, right? So communicating it with my CS teams, communicating it with my product, with my sales teams in partnership with my sales enablement, if there is a sales enablement, but a constant conversation, and then also doing the same thing within marketing, and not just communicating with my peers. I think there is an importance to ensure that there's alignment. So as I'm building it out, aligning with my peers on some of those pieces, but then also to their reports, right? And so moving, quote unquote, down the line to be able to say, hey, let's get together, let's communicate. Here's the documentation, here's where it is. And then ultimately it empowers and equips them with what they need and the insights that they need to be successful in their roles. But it's a lot of communication, a lot of making that time, because if you get it right, it will allow you to scale your activities and do more with the time that you have.
Sometimes and every human being on planet Earth that is involved in some sort of business, in some sort of organization, sometimes it's easier to get lost in the day-to-day to justify your existence than trying to push and prioritize. And this is at a very personal level at this point. I mean, it's like we're dimming the lights, like we're just turning it
It's
down a
like,
little bit.
tell me more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. So, how do you move beyond that fear of
Mhm.
letting go what you were in a tactical setting that will, I mean, because you can't do both. You can't
Yeah.
continue to be 100% tactical. If you're 100% tactical, that leaves you 0% opportunity to be
Yeah.
strategic.
Yeah. I
How do you
think
do
it,
this?
yeah, I think it's across the board. It's not just product marketing, right? So
Totally. This is a human
yeah,
issue,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So just as I mentioned, I've done a lot of different roles. And so sometimes marketing, right? You're so focused on, hey, I need to, for example, demand gen, right? I need to, create new strategies or new campaign or manage or, take a look at the how, on the operation side, how we're performing in terms of our campaigns that you're really focused on that day to day versus pulling back and saying, hey, let me actually get more insights into the customer, understand what channels are working, all that stuff, right? To be able to look holistically. The same thing for sales, right? You're looking at knocking on doors, right, quote unquote, proverbially, like calling your customers, having those conversations that you don't want to take a step back to actually say, hey, what's actually going to get me to the numbers? Who are all the different stakeholders? So it's a human condition, right? As you mentioned. And so ultimately it's really being able to take a breath, quote unquote, taking a breath and being able to understand all the things that I'm working on, is it really moving the needle forward? And again, it's easier said than done, right? I can look sometimes in the past, my calendar is so booked with meetings that it can be overwhelming. And so it's how do you really take a stock of what activities that you're working on to see if it's actually moving the needle. And if it's not moving the needle, there's something that needs to change. And you can't continue to do the same thing over and over again. So it doesn't really answer your question, but it's really taking a step back, seeing if it works, and then re re-changing how you approach your work and your activities. So
Dude, that exactly answers my question. What are you talking about? I
I'm
mean,
just saying, yeah.
you just, that could be a mic drop. Let's end the show right there. You have to stop from time to time and, like you said, take
Yeah,
stock.
exactly.
Are the activities that you're doing actually moving the needle? And if
Yeah,
you don't know, you better figure out how to measure if it's moving the needle or not, because otherwise you run the risk of just running that tactical treadmill.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah, just even one more point. When I was
oh,
in product, I there was a one point in time, it was just too overwhelming. The product managers get a lot of work as well, right?
a
And so
ton.
with that, it's really what I did is I took pen and paper and actually on a weekly basis time box to say, what am I spending my time on?
Mm.
Right? Is it meetings? Is it, is it a roadmap? Is it X, Y, and Z? Bucketized it based on activities and then basically use that to really look at my schedule and made changes, right? And so in the same way for product marketers, my encouragement is if you haven't done that, do that. If you find that you're oftentimes in meetings, oftentimes being called on, again, there's support, right? As an example, I know product marketers, and I've done this in the past, that are able to support sales teams on calls to win deals. But if you find your days spent on a daily basis on those prospect calls trying to close deals, then there's something that needs to change in your work. So, right, whether it's paper, whether it's digitally, take a stock on your day to day, and then look at what you're working on.
Boom. All right. What's the outcome of being a strategic PMM and moving past the tactical day to
Yeah.
day?
Yeah. There's a lot of great outcomes, right? So I think maybe on a personal PMM level, on my level, you enjoy your work more. But in terms of,
What enjoyment of work? That's
I'm just
crazy,
saying,
Ike. What are you talking about?
right? I'm just saying, right? But so there's that, but really, you're able to help build stronger products for your customers. You're able to bring stronger insights back into the organization. For the organization, you're able to win more. You're able to retain more, right? You're able to build stronger advocates. There's a lot of outcomes that you're able to drive, right? As a PMM that's focused on a product, on a strategic side. Organizationally, again, it's those goals that are aligned to what your customers, what your company vision is, and then also helping ultimately build stronger products for your customers that will help them meet their needs, right? Whatever that need may be.
So I'm hearing you say achievement of the desired
Cool.
strategy
Yeah,
is what will help, is the outcome of becoming less tactical
that's
or
right.
not in the key here. We're not talking about abandoning the tactics. You
No,
have to be
you have to
tactical,
have
but
it.
finding that split that you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's again, you can't have strategy without, you can't have tactics without strategy. You can, but it's just a waste of time, right?
It's a
So
waste of time.
you can't have strategy without tactics, because it's again, it's great ideas, visionary ideas, but no one is delivering on. So you have to have both. But ultimately, if you lead with strategy. So when I say strategic product marketing, it's how do you lead with strategy, right? And then how do you deliver through tactics? And so that's ultimately what it is, but you're able to deliver to your end goal that you're driving towards.
Valuable. All right. We're winding our conversation down here. Ike, if you were to give our listeners one piece of advice on how to start this journey
Yeah.
of moving beyond the tactical
Yeah.
and becoming more strategic, not away from, but
Yeah.
be, not just,
Yeah, exactly.
what would it be? How do
Yeah.
they start?
Yeah. Number one, take stock of what you're doing today, right? So as we mentioned, it's there's a lot of urgent things that for product marketers, I know you're working on. And so take a look at what you're working on today to see if it's moving the needle, reprioritize, and then go from there, right? And so that's the first place to start. Of today, am I tactical? So again, that post that I mentioned, if you find yourself just doing data sheets, new white papers, new sales deck, product launches, and rewind, doing it again, getting all these requests, but you don't feel like you're actually taking a step back, understanding the market, understanding your customers, understanding where they're going, understanding their needs, then you may be a tactical product marketer. So take a stock of where you are. And then if you find that you are tactical, start working towards moving towards more strategic, leading by strategy.
That was awesome. Ike, man, thank you for being on the show today. This has been amazing, great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course, Ryan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time and just connecting with you. This is great.
And listeners, for more from us here at Primary Intelligence, check out the show notes at www.primary-intel.com/podcast. And remember, no deal is out of reach. We'll see you next time.